Okay, fantastic. Hey everyone, for all of you that's watching, thank you for joining us. Welcome to our third edition of Divine Dogs Interactive. For those of you who haven't already seen these sessions or don't know what it's about, these are very free flowing sessions. These are workshops that don't have a subject or a topic of discussion as such. The flow of the session is entirely decided by the participants attending. So that allows us to touch on a variety of topics. In the last two, workshops of Divine Dogs Interactive, we ended up speaking about so many different subjects, ranging from, feeding street dogs, the behavior of community dogs and how we can rehabilitate anxious dogs. We even spoke about raising a visually impaired puppy. Swayambhu was a part of both the interactive sessions, so even had the chance to hear her story about her wonderful dog Kalyani, who lived up to the age of 18. Right, so a lot of interesting topics. So we will get started then, but before we go into it, let's just maybe introduce ourselves. Can we start with Swayambhu, because you've been a regular at our workshop? So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are joining these workshops? You'll have to unmute yourself.
There's too much of background noise, that's why I mute myself. My name is Swayambhu and I'm based in Bangalore. I'm a feeder and a rescuer for a decade, and I live with animals. That's the shortest way
A
to.
lot of animals.
Yes, I have eight cats, and one dog just passed away. I have one more, and one streetie has taken shelter in my terrace. I don't want to title her as adopted. I call her associated.
Associated.
So I don't want to commit that because I'll feel guilty, and I'll end up doing anyways. But
Yeah, that
just
always tends to
yeah,
happen. Nice, nice. Okay, thank you so much. And why did you join this workshop? Is there anything specific?
I think it's a good way to learn from you.
I'm also
It,
learning from all of you, by the
yeah,
way, right?
it's
So
a
these
good
were,
way to
yeah,
exchange, and a lot of experience gets shared. That's what I loved about this.
sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Yeah.
attending, Swayambhu.
Get different perspectives, otherwise we
Absolutely.
end up with our own
Absolutely.
perspectives. Yeah.
No, you're right. Because even for me, one of the biggest things in this is, again, I've mentioned before, as a trainer or a behaviorist, my perspective or my view is limited to just that, right? Very often. And I remember when I got married, and my wife used to tell me that's not how pet parents think. You can't go around shooting all your knowledge and whatever you've learned to pet parents. They won't get it, right? So for me, it really helps to see things from a more a pet parent perspective, from a rescuer's perspective, from a feeder's perspective. So that's what makes this there's so much learning packed in these sessions because of that. So next, Deepa, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi,
Hi.
I'm Deepa. Hi, how are you?
Good, doing good.
I'm based out of Gurugram, and I am a first-time parent to a 4-year-old. Actually, I don't know how to swap. I'm also not very tech
I
savvy. I'm actually walking Angie right now. That's why
Oh,
I have my
nice.
camera off. So it's his walk time, 6 to 6:30, and I have a 14-year-old son who's crazy about animals in general, and yeah, so I also volunteer a lot in my community to, for community dogs, look after them, do our bits as much as we can for them. But Swayambhu, that's really great. I'm so inspired. So it's so nice to hear your story. And yeah, I mean, I'm here because Karthik helped me in my journey with Angie, and I'm forever grateful.
Wow.
And I think he's wonderful and such a great, he's so good at what he does. And so I'm back here too. When he started these sessions, it was great, and I'm just here to learn more. That's it.
Thank you so much. No, I think you've spoken too highly of me. You have a saint of a
No,
dog.
no.
Angie is such a he's the epitome of Zen in a dog. He's such a sweetheart. He's a gem. And Kabir is also such an amazing child. And I
Thank
still
you.
remember doing the sessions for Angie. He was always so enthusiastic and always so excited to do stuff with Angie. So thank you so
So,
much for joining. And any
thank
particular
you.
reason
Thank
why
you.
you joined today's workshop?
I actually saw your post which said, pack behavior. I mean, so it really interested me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
that's why I joined. I mean, I anyway wanted to join. I couldn't join last week because I was out somewhere. So, but I mean, that's the post I saw when I
Yes.
knew that, oh, you're doing this today. And I thought, okay, that's interesting to understand how, I mean, it always fascinates me, I think, because I remember when, when you started training in G, and also, I mean, I used to watch a lot of Cesar Milan videos before I got him. I think the one thing that always struck me was, how people like you actually understand, and actually, I mean, not trainers as such, but behaviorists who understand dogs or animals in general always say that it's not about training them, it's about really us being trained and understanding how to live in their space, right? So I think so this is also understanding their behavior, and that's what I think fascinated me. So yeah.
Awesome,
That's
awesome. I'm so
yeah.
glad because this subject of pack behavior that you're talking about is something that is very interesting to me right from
Mm.
very early on. So I can see that more and more pet parents and people are getting interested in it, which is really cool because till now I always thought, okay, this stuff is only something that I would like, and people just want to know about their dog and stuff. So it's so nice, and now especially since more and more people are being involved with their community dogs, they're starting to observe things, right? So very excited. We'll definitely talk about pack behavior today,
Yeah.
and awesome. So Anula, can you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, I'm Anula. I'm basically from Bangalore. If I'm not wrong or if I'm not mistaken, I think I had contacted you 1.5 years ago about some of these treaties
Is it?
when I was having some problem. Yes, that's how I got in touch with you. After that, I couldn't get in touch with you. It's basically I'm a feeder, just like Soham, and I have started a few rescues in our group. We have a group, Austin Town Canine Group. We do a little bit of rescue. Not very active in that because I cannot drive or ride, but whatever off the field, whatever I can, I have been doing. Today's session basically I want to and I also have three golden retrievers who are sitting right
So
here,
nice.
and the others are outside, right outside the door, sitting my because it's their my
Wow.
feeding time for a couple of say four of them. So it's just that I want to understand more about not only about the about dogs but also how to manage these people who are actually against feeders.
Mm,
It's actually getting a little tougher and tougher day after day.
yeah, that's right.
Uh, and it is scary. It is scary. It is absolutely scary because you're going alone to feed them.
I
So I
know, I
just
can
want
imagine.
to understand how we can help these indies and how can we help ourselves as well.
That's such a, I think, important topic to discuss, especially with during the current times,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's something we've been going around about even in the past few interactives. We see this topic coming up again and again, right? Because there's so much of turmoil that has happened since the Supreme Court's verdict, and although things are seeming to be ironing out, I don't think
No.
it's going to be a long-term fix because certain there are some very foundational aspects that we are ignoring, right? And to be able to get through to people, especially the people who are against it, is a big challenge. I faced it myself, and so many apartments, communities. I've had the chance to go and conduct these sessions, these awareness workshops, and I mean, it is quite a challenge. It's not something that can change overnight. So we will talk about that as well. We'll discuss that.
Thank you, sir.
Great, great. Thank you so much for joining, Anula. That's my pack. That's my gang. I have 14 dogs, by the way.
Oh,
So I live with all indies and a big group. We had to pretty much move away from the city just for these guys, right?
oh.
So we have a big group of dogs. So I think one big commonality here is we're all working with a large number of dogs, whether it's community dogs or our own dogs. So that's good. So, what we'll do today is generally at during each one of these sessions, the first of all, always we'll try to keep ourselves on mute. All right, because what happens then is there'll be a lot of echo, and sometimes we cannot hear what the other person is saying. But again, as I mentioned earlier, feel free to unmute yourself at any point of time, right? If you have a question. Now, coming to the session, we're going to divide the session into a couple of parts based on whatever it is you guys want to discuss about. But from what I've understood right now, there are, I would say, three main topics of discussion. We can add more if we've got the time. The first topic we're going to discuss in today's session is about pack behavior. This is generally to understand the behavior of dogs. Uh, they are in packs. A pack is basically a social structure in dogs, right? A group of dogs living together, we call it a pack, right? We're just going to understand their mannerisms, their behavior, how they think and operate, right? And I think because all of us here are involved with more than one dog, we can observe and correlate to a lot of things that we discuss here, right? And your observations will also be very useful, so please feel free to bring that in. So topic one will be pack behavior. The second topic we'll talk about is, again, it is linked to pack behavior, but I do want to talk about a little bit when it comes to certain myths that we have when it comes to raising a group of dogs, and things we need to keep in mind, because for a lot of people now, you have we get more and more pets home. I think with Anula you've got three goldies at home, and then you've got Swayambhu has, even Deepa was just considering getting adopting one of the streeties in our community to the house. So we're going to talk a little bit about managing a multi-dog household, maybe bringing another dog into your pack. I thought that was an interesting topic that people will benefit from, whether you should do it, and if you do it, how to go about it. And the third topic, I think the most important here would be for, how do we go ahead with this issue that everyone seems to be facing? How can we create awareness, on this subject, and how can we reduce the conflict between animal lovers and I wouldn't call them animal haters, but people who have not really understood or got the message yet, right? So we'll break it down into these three. Anything else you want to talk about? Anyone? Anything? Cool. If there's anything later also, no problem, we can add it in, right? So these sessions are totally free flowing. Okay, so let's get started with number one, with pack behavior in dogs. So before I say anything, I want to just hear all your views on this. Because all of us have spent time around groups of dogs. Tell me what you've seen. Tell me what you think about uh, dogs when how they behave in a pack. What you've observed. Swayambhu, can you tell us what you think about it?
So, what I have observed is they are very bound to each other, and they will guard their territory,
Mm-hmm.
and they might be friends with other dogs during other times, but when it comes to food, it's there is a clear line, yeah,
Yeah,
clear line about the behavior, till where that friendship ends. So
absolutely.
that's, yeah. For food, they won't share. Rest of the times they are fine. They won't fight and all. But when it comes to food, they will clearly mark it out.
Bang on. That's true.
Yes.
That's the right observation. Anything you want to add to that, Deepa, Anula? Anything?
I think, I mean, my first experience with this pack, really observing a pack, was these six pups who
Mhm.
I saw, because otherwise all these community, I mean, they've come, you've seen them on streets, but we kind of get them adopted. So I've never, so that they don't form a pack in the community. So that's how we've always consciously done. But because, so this was my first experience. Like, I mean, so when they came, they were some 20 days old. That's what, when we took them to the vet, we were told.
Yeah,
So now they're 2 months. So, I mean, obviously, so they were like so cute, and it was like so nice to see that. I mean, you could see that they need each other, right? I
yeah,
mean, they were so codependent on each other. But I
exactly.
think interestingly, at least what I could gauge, because I was seeing them every day, you could make out that, one sibling was kind of attached to one. I mean, I don't know if it was in my head, but I
Yeah,
kind of, I could pick that up,
yeah,
because
yeah,
so I don't know if that's the case
yeah,
mostly.
absolutely,
And
absolutely. Yeah,
so, Yeah, so yeah, that's what
Super,
I really
super.
observed. Yeah.
Anula, what about you? You've got a pack at home
See
and outside.
in, yeah, I'm talking about first talking about the children who are outside, fur babies who are outside. They've been with me for our. I've been feeding them for the last 5 years now. It's the fifth year. They here
Nice.
in behind.
Uh-huh.
There is a mama and there are three babies. Only three could survive. And the second set of litter, the people started killing those pups. So the mother dog became a little aggressive.
Absolutely.
And what happened was she started chasing the bike. So maybe she knows who are the people who did it. So she's always on the side. She's not calm.
Of course.
uh, and among the other three, there is one which is very confident, not aggressive, like a leader. And the
Hmm.
other two are very timid, loving, and always going behind the fellow who's like a leader and the mama dog.
Nice observation.
And
Nice.
in front, what I have is, I don't know how many years old he is. I think he must be at least 15 plus years.
Wow.
He wouldn't allow anybody inside here. He's very pretty old, but the other one must be around 6 years. Taisu must be 6 years, but they are not they are not. It is not his baby or anything. But the way the bond is something which I like. My children here inside,
Yeah.
they bond very well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, but they are very possessive about me. Who has to be with me? Who has to be next to me?
Of
So that
course.
is the problem which is happening right now.
Absolutely.
That's
Got
my
it.
observation.
Nice. Brilliant. Very nice observations. And so I think these observations we all have made at some point, but we can't make sense out of it. That's the same problem that I used to face because I got interested in dogs when I was very young because I was very introverted in school and college. I wasn't very good at making friends, human friends. So I started feeding dogs and becoming very comfortable with the dogs in school and college. And I used to spend a lot of time just watching them. Many times I didn't have the chance to even befriend them. It would just be me sitting there, maybe feeding them and sitting. To the point where I've even asked my parents that I used to watch this guy on television called Sean Ellis. He was called the Wolfman. He spent in a wolf sanctuary. There were some wolves under captivity, and he raised them single handedly and lived with them for, I think, more than a year. I was too fascinated by this, and of course, I can't spend time with wolves, so I said, okay, let me do it with street dogs. My parents, I am from a very conservative, Brahmin household, so you can imagine they were totally, shocked by what I wanted to do. Of course, they never gave me a chance to do that, but as a rebellious teenager, I would find some time to go and just sit with them and hang out. So that time I was always very curious because I used to see these small, small things. Why is one dog gets to decide what he wants to eat? And I used to get really upset with that dog. I remember feeding. This is also what Swayambhu said. I would give all of them biscuits. One guy wants to eat everything. And I'll say, how can you do that? And I used to try very hard to feed the others because this guy will come snatch it from the others. And I used to think that's so mean, right? I used to try so many things. Many years down the line, only after studying this and actually pursuing this as a full-time profession, I started to realize that some of these behaviors are actually normal, right? So pack behavior is very, very vast. The subject is so big. We probably just know about 20% of it at max, right? Because dogs have a form of communication that we'll never know 100%, right? They are amazing beings. We just need to, it takes to connect with them. You cannot connect with them this way through knowledge, right? So that's something I've grown to understand. But that being said, a little bit about pack behavior. Now, a pack is a social structure. As I've said, it's a family, and the size of a pack will vary greatly. If you There is a documentary on the wolves of Yellowstone, right? You will find it online. Those packs of wolves, they formed very, very large packs, right? Packs, I think, reaching up to numbers that were 20 plus, right? Which is very rare. Usually what we see is packs of maybe 6 dogs, maybe 4. Some cases it's just 2. In rare cases maybe you might find about 10, right? So It varies. Now, how does a pack decide the number of dogs that it's going to have, and who decides this? Right, these are all questions that will come to our mind. So a pack again is about functionality. That's the first thing to remember. They function as a unit, right? So in nature it becomes very much about survival. When they come into our household, when all the survival gets taken care, then afterwards, all the higher needs they start looking for. But in general, in nature, it's all about survival, right? So when you see a pack of street dogs, whatever is best for their survival is what they will create, and they are very smart. Nothing happens by accident or by chance. So let's say there is a pack of street dogs and they've decided we're going to have like 10 dogs in the pack. There is a reason for that. They need that strength, they need that number. They know there is enough food for the 10. They know there is enough resources for the 10. Only then they will finalize 10. Let's see, another pack is not allowing more than 2. In their head, they need only 2 for their survival. And this is a decision that is made with utmost clarity. It is no accident, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about that, and some of this will be quite appalling. You may not have heard it before. So in a pack, it's essentially, as I said, a family. In a family, who do you have? Usually you have a mother, you have a father, you have children, right? This is really how a pack starts. And occasionally, when there is an abundance of resources, lot of food, lot of space, they may choose to expand the pack, especially when hunting is involved. When do more number of members come into handy? When you are trying to hunt, right? Because if you come to a village, you're likely to see larger packs of dogs. If you've observed, if you go to a more remote location, because there food is not served in a bowl, right? So dogs will accept more, especially if that dog's skill set or resume fits in for the company, which is the pack, right? That's the best analogy I can give. So if, let's say, this pack needs let's say a dog that's really good at hunting, they will take the other dog in. This is nature, right? This is without our intervention. If they feel they need a dog who has decision making skills, they will take a dog with those traits in. If they feel there's a lot of conflict in the pack and they need a dog that can help diffuse the conflict, they'll take a peacemaker in. That's what we like to call them. They take a dog that has good peacemaking uh, tendencies, right? So there are different roles in a pack. Now, before I tell you anything else, let me just broadly describe some of the roles I've seen and some that I've learnt about. These roles are not defined so much in pet dogs because, of course, the lifestyle is different. A lot of the resources are provided for, right? So many of these roles become irrelevant. But generally, of course, you've got father, mother, and kids. In the whole pack, you will have something called a decision maker, right? A decision maker is a dog that makes the decisions, that will decide what happens, what is going to be the size of the pack, where the pack is going to migrate, when they are going to eat, what they are going to eat, how they are going to eat, who gets to eat more, who gets to eat less. Lot of decisions that you wouldn't believe. I don't think any high level leader, even in human civilization, will be making that many decisions. Their whole life is based out of making decisions. And another surprising thing, this decision maker is not the one that most people think is the decision maker. So who do you think is the decision maker in a pack? Like, usually when, like Anula said, the confident one, they all follow him. He goes straight, confident, head up, tail up, not afraid of anything. This is what we think, right? Alpha. This is what we are always thinking. That's the alpha. He's the leader of the pack, but he's not. He is what we call as the protector, right? This is the next role I'm going to tell you. A decision maker is usually not on the front lines, but if you watch subtle communication, they're the one driving the protector, they're the one deciding what happens, and many times the decision maker will even instigate the protector to eat more. Chalo, or khalo, you need to be strong, you need to be big and strong, protect me. That's the level to which she will decide. And very often it's the decision making female, usually the mother in the pack, that we see who assumes this role of a decision maker. Standard. But we have male dogs also that display decision making characteristics. So it's not a gender specific thing, but this dog makes the decisions and will never be on the front line, right? They are not usually the biggest and strongest. Sometimes they can be the most frail, right? And sometimes they are the master communicators in the pack. They know every member of the pack and they know what to do. A decision making female, usually the mother, will even go to the extent of deciding what kind of dog to breed with in nature. This so now a lot of this is irrelevant because of course neutering is there, but she will decide who to breed with to get what kind of puppies because are yaar, I need protection. I need my child to be a little more protective of the pack. So I'm gonna find someone to breed with to make sure those kind of characteristics come into the child. So if you ask me whether these traits are genetic, 100% they are in nature. You see this from day one, it starts to grow, and they are reared for that. But today, we domesticate our dogs to an extent where a lot of these things become irrelevant. So when we look at our pet dogs, we don't say he's a decision maker, he is a protector. No, we cannot do that. They are a mixture of these traits, right? So my dog might have decision making traits, might have protective traits, but my protective traits may be more than the decision making traits, right? So these are two characters, right? So does this ring a bell for any of you from the dogs you've seen? Have you seen any decision makers? Have you seen any protectors? Okay, Anula has seen. Swayambhu, you've also seen. You've told us. You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, yeah, I would have noticed.
Yeah, Deepa, have you noticed this?
Yeah, so we have a couple here.
Yeah, yeah,
So the male very clearly, I mean, so there are just two of them in
yes, yes,
this in one of the blocks
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and I mean, it's very clear that the male is the protector.
It's all usually like that. So the standard template that we see in nature is females assume a decision making role, the males assume a protective role, right? But of course, based on situations and scenarios, different things. Now, coming back to the decision maker also, the first priority of the decision maker is self preservation, which means the survival of the pack. She needs to make sure she survives, she needs to make sure the rest of the pack survives. So all her decisions are based on preservation of the pack. Sometimes she will even decide certain things like this dog cannot be in the pack anymore, which will seem very mean to us. I'm saying, it's difficult to observe, but in cities especially, but she will decide. And suddenly they'll say, we'll have to reduce the number of pack. Like these IT companies are now, uh, sending people out. So she will decide that, but it's all meant for the well being of the pack, right? And she is always for her because safety and self preservation is important. What she needs the most is a protector. This is a pair that goes ages, that goes generations back. This pair is needed for survival, right? So very often a decision maker will always get paired with a protector wherever you go. She Decision makers don't like to be by themselves. They don't like to take the front line. If you adopt a dog with decision making traits, you're gonna have to take the front line. And she will try to indicate it to you in all the ways that she knows, but we're usually deaf to what they're saying. We end up teaching the dog that no, it's okay, and making them, trying to socialize them too much, make them meet too many people. But you're gonna create a dog that feels more on guard, right? And trust me, a decision maker trying to protect is quite unbalanced, right? Totally out of element, not what she wants to do or not what he wants to do at all. Same goes reverse. You might get a dog that's got protective traits, right? And then you want to say, you want to treat him like a decision maker. You want him to walk behind you. You want him to be very obedient and be behind and all of that. Protector doesn't want to do that. He wants to walk in front of you. He wants to be up ahead. And protector dogs usually, in my experience, are not aggressive. That's another myth. They're confident. They're very, very confident. And funnily, aggression doesn't come from confidence. Aggression always comes from fear and insecurity. A confident dog might use his strength and bully a little bit, but never. They don't have the need to use aggression because they know they're physically stronger. right? And they can get what they want, and they like to feel that, right? This is what we misunderstand as my dog is trying to dominate me. I have seen so many households where you allow the dog to dominate and the family will be happier. It sounds so ironic and so against what we may have seen or heard, but it is the truth. If you have a dog, which is rare, with these traits, sometimes it's good to allow the dog to take the front line because they're a lot more balanced that way. Anyways, so I'm just going into a different topic. But yeah, in the pack, we've got a decision maker, we've got a protector. Another common trait, there are a lot of characters by the way, but I'm just going to tell you a few. Another one is called a pro-social. Pro-social, as the word suggests, is the social butterfly. The most friendly dog in the pack, wants to make friends with everybody, tuck tuck tuck, whale tail wagging all the time. The glue of the pack, the peacemakers of the pack, the therapy dogs of the pack. Usually the dogs that actually make the best therapy dogs. So a lot of retrievers, or certain dogs that you see with these sweetheart, always going around, social butterflies, they were, believe it or not, bred to have this character trait over generations. So all the breeds we have today were actually created by us, right? So not golden retrievers didn't just magically come into this world. Humans decided that, okay, I want a dog with this trait, and they started to breed in a particular way, and then finally we had a golden retriever. So they were selected for particular traits, right? Which is why you see pro-social traits to be very high in certain breeds. You see protective traits to be very high in certain breeds because they were bred for that. But if you look at it on a very instinctive level, it is also an integral part of a pack, right? The pro-social helps to ensure that there's no conflict within the pack. They're often also seen as the peacemakers. They go appease. They're kind of happy-go-lucky, going around keeping the mood alive in the pack. And these dogs, you'll see them very clearly if you're with a pack of street dogs. Usually their tail will show you. It's the it's the most active, moving about, and they're usually quite submissive. I wouldn't say, again, submissive is a wrong word, but they're friendly. They're always open for interaction. They'll go come to your dog. If you're walking your dog, they'll lie down, show the belly, you know, and all of that. But don't be mistaken, decision makers can also do this if they feel befriending your dog has a benefit. But very clear, it is. How do you differentiate a decision maker from any of the other dogs? They can change roles, and they will do what is needed for that moment. They're very, very good. So most indies have decision making traits. 99% of indies will be strong on decision making because they need it for survival. If the rest of the pack vanishes, they need to survive. And for that, decision making needs to be ingrained into them. The other members of the pack are not so much about self preservation as a decision maker. So, again, we've got the pro social. And finally, we've got two more members I'll tell you about. You've got something called a teaser or a tester, which is your quality control. Like you have, they make sure the pack is quality is good. What they do is they tease, they test the dogs in the pack. They're the most annoying dogs. Very often, if you get a dog with these traits, then you're in for a ride because they can be the naughtiest. They can always be pushing your buttons because their job is to push the buttons, right? So they will constantly do what you're not supposed to do. They will go bug the protector to make sure that and they'll stop once the protector gives a strong growl or a strong correction. They'll say, okay, baba, aito, okay. Then they'll go to the next person. They'll go to the decision maker to check if the decision maker is making decisions well, right? But their job is just to kind of, quality control. Again, a little rare. All these are very well defined from what I've learned and studied in wolf packs, but a lot more diminished. But yes, it is still existent. So quality control you have. And finally, the last one would be your early warners. But again, different names. We call it the back of the pack. The most scared dogs. The ones sometimes you'll never get to come close to. They'll always be, so far away from you, looking at you from a distance, and the first to bark usually. That's why they're called early warners. They'll start. The moment they get to know any intruder has come in, some person is coming, and they will inform the whole pack, right? But they're the most scared and usually the ones that never get caught, right? And all in right reason. Their personality itself is like this. So usually, if you, let's say, were to, so one of this dog got injured, they went into a rescue, they went into a shelter, and they got adopted from a shelter. They don't fit into many homes because people have an expectation out of these dogs. They want it to be like the perfect dog, like you see in a movie, right? But they're not. They what they want is just space and freedom. So where will they fit? Countryside home with an elderly couple. Really good, very good guard dog. Because as a guard dog, what do you want them to do? Let you know when someone comes close to the gate. These dogs will tell you when they're 15 steps before the gate itself. Early warning system, right? So that's another trait. Very useful, but very important for the pack, right? So you see, there are so many different roles, and honestly, I've not even, there's so many more, right? Because there are roles that they assume based on the environment. There are hunting roles. If they're living in a place where they need to hunt, that's a different thing. There'll be bigger packs, and there are dogs that will hunt in a particular way. They have formations. So it's quite interesting. That goes into animal behavior at large. But yeah, generally with to do with dogs, we see these characteristics, but very very diminished, and they all have to intertwine together, work together as a pack. And sometimes we'll find that one of them is having to play a different role from what's natural to them, and that's when you get more conflict, right? So either they have to move away from the pack. So people say, I feed a pack of street dogs, and there's two dogs that constantly they keep fighting. They'll go through these fights for a while and eventually come to a conclusion. If they don't, then what naturally happens is one of them moves away. But us, because we're constantly feeding them, we don't let that move away to happen. So the fighting continues, and then it manifests in other ways, right? Not that we have to stop our feeding, but this is just something for us to keep in mind, right? These are things that can happen. Otherwise, you might see sometimes two of them neutering. You were not able to catch all the dogs in the pack. We took two of them and neutered them. It'll upset the balance big time, because what happens is when you neuter a dog or you spay a dog, the dog is identified, their ID card is 90% scent based, right? Only 10% appearance, characteristics, mannerisms, all that is. So in a dog's pack, especially a street dog pack, your smell is very important. It's like your ID card. So with a pack of wolves, you should not have a bath. Like Sean Ellis, when he was with the pack of wolves, he never had a bath, right? He had to be without showering. He had to eat what the wolves were eating, the carcass, because for them, they smell everything. What did you eat? You may have noticed, as a pet dog owner, the dog always wants to come close to the openings on your face. They want to investigate what did he eat, when did he eat, what was the quality of the food, how much is it digested. These things matter a lot, because food is not just food, as we look at it. In their world, they decide who eats what food, because certain foods, when you eat, you'll get more stench. Certain foods, less stench when you pee, when they mark. Marking is a form of communication. So you can imagine some dogs want their smell to be more prominent, so they will make sure they eat certain food. So food is not just as a form of nutrition. Food is also a form of communication, right? So which is why when they hunt, they are very clear especially when they hunt and kill a carcass, they decide for a wild animal who gets to eat what. The smell is their identity, and they will do everything to preserve it. You take an Indie and you give him a bath, next day they will go. I used to run a pet store called the Urban Pet, and we had a dog called Glue, an Indie, who just came and joined our pack, one fine day. And we used to give Glue a bath because she used to meet so many customers. So once or twice a week, once in every 2 weeks, we'll give her a bath. She will get angry. There used to be a garbage dump at a little distance from our place. She'll run out of our house and dive into it and roll in it. She's like, I hate this smell. I want to smell natural. They want a natural cologne. When you give them a bath, or sometimes, this is why, especially decision makers and all that, if you have a pet with those traits, they'll say they're fussy eaters. They're very particular of what goes into their system, because that's what makes them. It's their identity. Especially if you have more dogs, this becomes even more relevant, right? So coming back to what I was saying, the smell is their ID card. When you neuter a dog, the smell varies, it changes greatly. So they are going to be perceived differently by the other members of the pack. So what happens then is there'll be conflict because that dog still thinks they're the same person, and then the other dog is viewing them differently. So this dog will give a posture and say, I am so and so. But posture doesn't match the smell. That dog will say, Arey yaar, you're giving me this posture, but that's not the smell you're giving away. And then that usually sparks off a little bit of a wow, 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 and then they separate, right? So neutering can have major effects. So sometimes blanket neutering doesn't help certain packs, but of course we have bigger problems at hand, so we need to neuter all of them. But I'm just telling you all of this out of interest in the subject, right? So it helps to know. So that's really how a pack functions, right? It's a unit, lot of different characters. I think I've already given too much of information at once. It's a big overload. So what do you guys think about this? Anything you want to say?
No,
Any
it was very interesting actually. That's why I think all of us kept quiet
okay, okay.
listening. So, yeah, one thing I want to clarify is you said neutering is, of course, we have to do it because of the population
Absolutely.
control. And so, but bathing a stray dog can be avoided, I think, no?
Uh, they don't
Like
like it.
some of us, yeah, some of us might end up, bathing the dog,
Yeah.
stray dogs that we feed.
Yeah, it makes a
So,
difference because when they
yeah.
go back into the pack, maybe not so much because bathing is still at least to some extent external. Neutering,
Mhm.
massive change because the
Yeah.
scent is internal. They will regain their scent by choosing to eat or whatever
Yeah.
and doing a couple of things. But yeah, sometimes if bathing is a necessity, like the dog's got skin rashes and all of that
Yeah.
is something we need to do. So health is always first. But
Yeah.
the next step, I mean, if you really want to look at it, we don't always prefer. Like we have a pack of dogs. In my pack, majority are female dogs,
Mm.
right? And you can see when you bathe one, the others are super curious about why are you like this? What? And that dog gets awkward. They're like, what's wrong? I mean, why are all of you coming like this? You smell different. Are you the same person? So they go with one round of that, and then they realize, okay, okay, same person,
Mhm.
same person. So that is the thing. But yeah, uh, ultimately our decision should be based on the well-being of the dog,
Yeah.
right? And lot of what I'm telling you may not be 100% relevant to the packs that we see in the city because they are
Mm.
they are designed differently, because
Yeah.
the survival mechanism in a city is not the same thing as in the wild or in
Mm.
nature. um, anything else you guys want to say about it or something you can relate to from this?
So, Karthik, I just had a question.
Yes,
I mean,
please.
really fascinating to it's mind boggling. And I think, as always, human just interferes with everything. And
That's right.
okay, so I just had a question. So, let's say if that's how they think, right? Now,
Mm,
when we get them home,
mm,
so the same mindset is going to happen even at home in a family,
yeah.
I'm assuming, right? So they
Mm.
will. So do they kind of assign different roles in a family as well? So so for example, let's say at home, right now, of course the like I mean I feed Angie most of the time unless I'm not there, which is very rare, and therefore I ask Kabir to, let's say, give him the meal. Um, but like it's always like it's a I tell Angie something, right? I mean, like he knows his boundaries, though he spends like the whole day with me, and of course I would assume that he loves me the most, and I would like to believe that. And but it's very clear that his relationship with Kabir, like he would lick Kabir all over, right? So it's like he knows he's like a sibling with me, like when he came in, right? I mean, so like because initially when he came in, like I think I've shared this with you when we started, so like I've always loved dogs, but I think NG is now over 4 years, obviously how I look at dogs is drastically changed. I was apprehensive, let's say, in them licking me all over. I mean, I had that thing, right? I would maintain my distance. I would cuddle them and pet them, but I did not like dogs coming to me like that, right? So Angie knows, like even now, if you were to lick me, even today, like when I allow him right now he knows he can lick my face, but he will lick me twice, he will pause, then he'll lick me. Like, it's almost like to see if I'm okay that he can continue versus if Kabir wakes up, he's like, all over, right? I mean, he can just go on and on like for 20 minutes where I have to tell him, like, calm down, like, stop now. So, or like, let's say if Kashik were to tell him no, but if I like, for example, even finger, right? If I were to take my finger even right next to his mouth, he will not nibble it. Not, he won't open his mouth, right? But like my sister were to put her finger, Kabir were to put, he knows he can like nibble it. So I'm just trying to understand, do they form that in the family as well? Like these roles that you're giving, or like you're saying in the past.
100%. They definitely do. It's very different because of our sheer position, the fact that we own the house and we have a leash and a collar and everything, we kind of put ourselves in some position for sure, you know. So certain decision making roles and protector roles are already played by us naturally, right? But that being said, especially with certain dogs, the ones that are little more instinctively intelligent, we say. You know, a lot of dogs, their instinct is dead today, especially the pure breed dogs, over generations. But the ones that have instinctive intelligence, indies, of course, you'll see they'll make very clear associations. They, on day one, on the first few days and weeks of their relationship with you itself, they will gauge who is who, right? They will test, they will check what your boundaries are, and they'll understand you're so and so. And for the functioning of the pack, they expect those roles. So for example, um, I have a little girl, a little indie. She grew up with us very closely, right? With a lot of, because we have a big pack, we have to actually teach each of them to be independent and have their own resting places and form bonds with, certain other members. But this one girl, just because of situations, she became very close to us. So it was just me, my wife, and her staying close. She was always resting with us and with us the entire time. She started to draw associations from the beginning, right? Who will go out, who will bring in the food, small things, who brings in the food. Because with her, right? I've raised her very different from all my other dogs. It's not been so much as a trainer. I've raised her more in a very natural way. I've actually intervened to the bare minimum with her. So with her, I can see a lot of these things. For example, she eats with me, she eats with us, she sleeps with us. She literally behaves like a pack with us. So in such a case, very clearly evident. So the roles she associates me with, she wants that to be upkept. So she's an indie, right? Again, self-preservation is really important. She wants the survival of the pack. She has decision-making traits. So if I'm doing a different role, she gets stressed. Or let's say my wife is usually in with her and I step out to get stuff. But now, if I'm in with her and my wife steps out, we call it separation anxiety.
Yeah.
But she's actually really upset with the switch in roles. You can see the stress. Sometimes it's not overt, but it'll be something subtle. You might see her start biting her paws vigorously, yawning excessively. Different signals which we'll understand, are forms of stress in dog, and she'll just be really restless and you'll be wondering why. It's just that, no, this shouldn't be happening, it's out of order, she'll think. So what they create in the first 1 month is what they need, and they understand this person is going to be a decision making role more in this house. This person is going to take a little bit more of the protector role, right? And to the point they want that to maintain. We all resist change, right? It's the same with dogs. So when you're trying to change it, you can see it very clearly that they're like, no, 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 this is not normal. You'll see them kind of overtly show that. So why I'm saying this is, all of them do make associations with us. We cannot formally, it may not be the same as what you see with the street dogs, because our roles are very different, our lives are different. Maybe today we have different job description, in the dog's perspective. Maybe it's not a pure decision maybe we're just like a food giver. Maybe this person is a playmate, like a sibling, right? So I can't call it the same job description as a decision maker or a protector, because we don't live that kind of a life anymore. But definitely they make these associations early on in their life, and they will maintain it for most of their life unless situations have to change. And they'll also, if she's a decision making trait is high, especially with some indies which are very sensitive, they'll also kind of go to the point of, if that person isn't fulfilling that role, they'll try to come in and fill that role. Like, I don't know, I'm not able to think of any example off the board, but you had a certain relationship with that dog, right? So you can damage a relationship with a decision maker very easily. That's something to remember, because these dogs are constantly trying to communicate to you. So if you miss 100 of their signals, they're going to have to do something about it. So they'll lose trust in you. That's why we say many times the problem doesn't come from dog being dominant or this. It's from misunderstanding. The rift happens in training because early on we damage the relationship more than listening to the dog. Right? If we did more listening before we did the talking, you'd actually get where they're coming from. And that's really the whole purpose of dog behavior or teaching pet parents this, because you can start listening to them a little bit more. Because when you start doing that, you'll see that many of the things that we immediately say as bad behavior might actually have a reason behind it, right? So that's what it is. um, Anything you want to say, Anula, before we go into the next thing?
All the roles you specified,
Huh.
I'm able to connect with all the indies wherever I'm feeding.
Wow,
But I'm not
nice.
able to connect with my children
Huh.
inside.
Very
Why is
difficult. Because as I said, for pet dogs na, these roles are very very diminished, especially pure breed, especially retrievers and all are just pro-social mostly, and they're all just, they just love company, they've been bred for generations that way. So it will be very diminished, especially, with retrievers and all. In my experience, I love retrievers. They've been a part of my life from the beginning. They just, how do I put it, they just want some direction, some love. Very simple, they're very godly in some sense, because they're just like, it's just very live in the moment, bindas types. These guys are a little more complicated, especially the indies, right? Which is why when you train dogs, many people will say you cannot train the indie the way you train a retriever, right? You cannot train a German Shepherd the way you train an Indie, because the breed does have a role to play. And secondly, personality. Even within the breed, you have to go with the personality and not against it, right? But in a family, usually, many times you won't see this, right? But if you're very subtle, especially let's say you've seen family of dogs, are your retrievers all related by any chance? Are they all from a similar family or different litters? I think the retrievers are calling. So anyway, we'll ask her that question again, because I'm curious about that. Um, but anyway, so that's about pack behavior. I know we've spoken a lot. As I said, it's never ending. It's something that can go on for days and days, because there's so many different things. Um, Now, apart from pack behavior, there was another thing that I wanted to do about the multi-dog households, but I'm gonna put that on hold so it doesn't get too late for everyone. But Anula, since you're back, just wanted to check: are the retrievers you have, are they like siblings or litter, similar litter or different? They are. How is the relation? Yeah, I think you're on mute. Huh. Hi.
sorry,
Huh.
my dog walker came, and so they were excited. That's it.
Oh.
It is father, mother, and son.
Oh, so nice. You have such a nice family. Nice. Okay, you have the whole family there. Yeah, if you have a family, usually you can see very subtly, but they don't necessarily have to show it very overtly. It'll be very diminished. And sometimes they take mixed roles. In one situation, one of them will step up to be a little bit more of a protector, where in another situation, the other one might step up to be more protector. Doesn't mean they will protect. They're taking the front line, I'm saying. No, not like that. All will go front.
No, but with retriever, sorry, I mean, I don't mean to belittle or whatever, but with retriever, I'll tell you, get a cat, the cat will be the boss.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
so easy. It's so easy. I mean, when we give
I
cats for
completely
adoption,
agree.
yeah, cats for adoption, if it's a retriever, it's heads up.
100% success, yeah. Actually,
Actually,
uh-huh.
the the indies were actually outside the gate, and because there's a lot of problem, they I feed them inside the
Inside.
yard. So now they dictate terms to these people. Now.
They are very,
Yeah,
very sober.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
Retrievers are like,
That's
cats
absolutely true.
literally sleep on them. And we
Yeah,
have so many pics, where cats are taking a nice nap and it's a big build, no?
yeah, yeah.
They'll be nicely sleeping on their body, and these guys let them fool around.
You're right. Yeah, with retrievers, this is a thing, you know. So bang on. I think with retrievers, you none of all these traits will go out of the window. Mostly, I think where you can observe this the most is in the very instinctive, the aboriginal dogs. You know, like here we call it the Indian pariah.
Mm.
In Australia, it's called the dingo, Australian dingo. In Africa, it's called the basenji. You have the Kenan dog. So these are all they're not breeds. They're a land race. They've evolved naturally. So with them, you can see these traits. So actually, a lot of the indies we see are from the original Indian pariah, which is the textbook dog that's come out of our land race based on natural selection. They're the most sturdy, the strongest. You know, standard features: erect ears, slightly curved tail, usually brown in color, and they've kind of got mixed with a lot of other dogs along the way in different terrains, and that's what you see as all the street dogs and the strays today. So, anyways, we'll keep going on about this, but I do want to talk about the next topic. Uh, we are going to skip the topic about multi dog households for now because I think it'll be a lot, but we'll definitely cover that sometime in the future, maybe even as a separate workshop. The other topic is we're going to talk a little bit again on the resolving conflict bit between the pet lovers, animal lovers, and the other side. Um, so again, we've spoken about this a few times, but Anula, just to tell you, the only solution that's really going to come out of all of this in the future is through awareness, right? How we create that awareness, that may depend based on the kind of crowd and the kind of people that's there, because a lot of times as dog owners, we can, or even as pet pair or enthusiasts, animal enthusiasts, we will always get very infuriated when we speak to these people because they are not able to see with the kind of empathy that we're seeing situation with, and they've been maybe in right reason, as we've discussed in the past, they may have had a traumatic experience with one dog, or maybe they've just been raised that way in a household where dogs were shown to be something that they're not, and told as aggressive, biting. There are so many myths even today. So many places when I go for training, you'll have the elderly people say, yeah, you give chicken, they'll become aggressive. There are so many small myths that go around that the dog will bite if you are like this, and it's very much prevalent. So that fear has to be wiped out. For that, we need to create a lot of awareness, and sometimes when we're creating this awareness, we have to take a neutral stance. Whenever, whether you're an animal enthusiast, a rescuer, or a feeder, or a trainer like me, when you're going to engage with these people, if you go as a trainer or as a rescuer or a feeder or an enthusiast, trust me, like they've blocked us off 90%. We have to go with such a neutral stance. We bring in our knowledge and expertise, absolutely, but then we have to go there with such a neutral stance and kind of solve the problem from their side, because dogs actually don't have a problem. They're fine. In all honesty, if the issue has become so big today, it's not because of the dogs at all. Dogs are just going around doing their same thing. It's the people, one on top of the other. They want people want conflict so much. Dogs don't want conflict. They try to resolve conflict, right? And people want conflict so badly, they've just kind of pushed it on the dogs. They'll get anyone involved, right? It could be dogs today, it could be something else another day. So the trick is, generally whenever I go for these things, we need to understand and we need to go and explain to them in a way that it benefits them. So if people start to realize that the approach they're doing is actually going to counter fire, whatever it is they're trying to achieve, then that's what. So I'll give you an example. They want to rehome all the dogs in a particular area. All right, simple example. The dogs are being aggressive here. We don't like the fact that you're feeding the dogs. We're going to take all the dogs and we're going to. What happens when you start rehoming the dogs? Or let's say in extreme scenarios, they do something like, giving the dogs something bad and trying to poison. I'll tell you the sad truth. These dogs are going to go. Another set of dogs are going to come and replace that area. That's the simple truth. You're not going to be able to because in India, the way things have evolved and the way community and lifestyle is, we don't have those kind of shelters. or infrastructure to be able to rehome every dog. We have all developed a very nice bond as a community with the dogs living in our area. Right now, if you were to take the dogs out of an area, other dogs will fill in the space. And very often, if you start wiping out the dogs that are friendly and good in community structure, the dogs that will fill in the role are not going to be the same, right? Many times we experience this even in blanket neutering. I'm not saying, of course, we have to do neutering, but when you neuter a dogs in one area and all of them can't breed now, which dogs you think are going to breed? You think all the dogs are going to stop breeding? Never. Are you going to catch all the dogs? Never. The dogs that are going to breed are the early warners that are standing 5 kilometers away, who are scared of people, very terrified of people. So, what happens when an early warner is feeling cornered or has to step up to the role of a protector? There you have your biter. That's what I said. It's not usually the confident dogs that will bite. It's an insecure dog with trauma that will often learn to land these big bad bites. Right? A confident dog will bite who? Members of the same family, not a stranger. And bite also not in the traditional biting sense. Hey, don't do that. Hey, why you're coming here? Go there. You know, like a mother will sometimes give corrections to the puppies
Mhm.
within the same pack. For them to take a liberty with a stranger who they don't know, whose smell is unfamiliar, they will always bark and give warning first. Hey, who are you? If they are going and biting, you can be sure that there is some kind of trauma, right? So that is one. So creating awareness that rehoming is not the key. The second thing is, if you have feeders and um, rescuers or animal enthusiasts or dog enthusiasts in the area, you need to create a standard, of how to feed, where to feed, when to feed, because erratic feeding is another thing that will create conflict, not just for the people, but it even creates so much confusion in the dogs. Because for a dog, as Swayambhu correctly mentioned, the only time you will see some kind of aggression crop up is over resources, right? It may be food, it could be resting places, sleeping places. That's how territorial behavior starts in dogs. Now, how do we make how do we make a certain place into a dog's territory? They have their sleeping place there, they have their eating place there. So if you are consistently feeding and a dog in a particular area and making them they're sleeping in a particular area, they will guard it, especially if the contrast is higher. What I mean by contrast now, one person hits the dog with a stick. Here, one person gives so much love. Now, this is contrast. Now, the dog will retaliate to that guy. But if this person never started feeding, the dog will just go away. Isn't that funny? So now the blame seems to be on the person that's feeding, but that's not the truth, right? It's only about regulation. See, that it's natural for any dog when they are feeling like a victim, they have to go and take cover. But now there is a savior to protect them, so their confidence boosts up. So now in the so many times you will see, if you're standing with them, then they'll do even more aggression, they will do even more uh, chasing vehicles, they will behave even more. So we have to create a relationship with these dogs that does not disturb that balance, right? And this is the hardest thing to do, especially when you are a community feeder or you're looking after dogs in the area. You have to handle it with some kind of separation. This doesn't mean you don't spend time with them, you don't feed them. You have to feed them, but you find the right spots to feed them, right? You find the right time to feed them. You don't feed them and pet them, especially when people are crossing, especially if they've had a bad experience around vehicles, because then you create the contrast and the dog will chase the vehicle. Dogs will also be more cranky around the times that you feed them, before the meal time or sometimes right after, around the meal time area. They can be a little more cranky because it's a time of high arousal, right? So the main thing is about regulating the feeding. And if you are living in a community, you can, and let's say dogs are a part of your community, you can evaluate. If you've got a group of people, you evaluate the kind of dogs in an area, maybe even take the help of a behaviorist and kind of see what needs to be done. We worked with a community, um, and there was a continuous issue with the community dogs, but the solution was actually to remove one member from there. That member who we removed was the friendliest, sweetest dog, loves people. But that same member is the one that also charged their delivery boys and bid
Mm.
delivery boys, right? So over here, I can say, let me try to fix the guy, or I can try to inform, but the easiest fix is actually to get him out from that environment, right? But that immediately fixed it, and you had that dog. Now that dog is living in a household and is very happy,
Mm.
is living his best life. So sometimes the dogs will show you the path they want to take. They always want to take the easiest path. So if you find a dog, it's too much resistance in an area with a particular dog, the decision may be actually to rehome that dog. You might find the perfect home. We discussed last time also, the same behavior that we brand as bad behavior for a street dog might end up becoming the most desirable behavior in a household, as a guard dog maybe, right? So it does require a little bit more careful observation and deciding what needs to be. And this usually cannot be done single handedly. You need to come together as a group of people, get someone who has some kind of prior experience in the field, discuss with them, and make a decision, because that's usually how we reach a solution. And about the people in the area, we cannot approach them from our thing, as weird as it sounds, because they I'd like to think that dog owners are a little more, pet parents are a little more intelligent, and I'd like to think cat parents are even more intelligent. That's the truth. But the thing is, with people like that, they cannot see eye to eye. They cannot understand things from our perspective. So you have to go to where they're at to bring them to where you want them to be. You cannot do it from their place. They are so resistant. They've put 10 walls even before you try to tell them. And when you go out to feed the dog, very often, as you said, some people are even getting harmed. It's becoming quite a bad thing. I see those videos, it's really quite sad, right? So in those areas, rather, of course, if any kind of wrong is being done, then strict legal action has to be taken. But on a long term, if there are issues happening like that in your area, some kind of awareness drives, some programs need to happen to warm up people. And it doesn't happen at once. One of the apartments that I used to work with, non-stop clash. It became so bad. They said we can't have dogs. Dogs are not allowed in the lift. It became really, really bad. They told all pet parents they have to give this document. Some dogs were just branded as aggressive and they were treated badly. People were just losing it. We did so many sessions with them in different styles. So, for example, we did an awareness program for kids on how to prevent dog bites. We did another program of an interaction session for kids with a therapy dog, or even adults. Then we did another dog show kind of a program where all the pet parents came and projected their dog in the true light. you know it becomes a fun thing, and then over a period of time those guys will start warming up. So actually this solution cannot be reached single handedly. We need to come together as a group, right? If there are feeders in area, you come together and you take a diplomatic stance, and you, of course, on the legal side, if people are doing total wrong, take the action. But also remember, but if you only take that, there may be 10 people on the fence, but seeing that legal action was taken, they'll take the side of the other person, right? So while you do that, you also have to clearly show them. We have to project dogs in the true light, basically, right? And we can only do that from a neutral space, not from any kind of our background. The moment I bring in the fact that I have 14 dogs, I'm a dog trainer, I love dogs, they'll say, "Arey yaar, you love dogs." No, you'll say like that only. Why are you here to tell us about this? Who are you to advise us? You don't know. You've not been. I mean, you're not scared of dogs. When you were small, you weren't bitten by a dog. Same thing. I also will hear when I go to the apartments. So I have to say, yeah, I hear you totally. It's very scary. When the dog bites you, it's wrong. How can kids be bitten by dogs? We we make them feel right, make them feel included, and then explain to them, okay, fine, we have to arrive to a solution, but it's important for your child also know in the future while we arrive at the solution. So what do you do when the dog bites? Why the dog bites? So slowly you start warming them up. So awareness is the only way I can think about to fix this. And feeding also, we have placed a very, very feeding on a very high pedestal, which is important. We have to feed our dogs, but make it a little more casual, because when you make feeding into a ritual, very specifically, that's visible to all these people, they they will think you are making the dogs aggressive. It doesn't work that way at all, right? It's a big myth. You feeding, as a matter of fact, the first reason why a dog or a human will behave aggressive is lack of food resource. You get hangry, you don't have food, you will get annoyed and we'll start behaving cranky. So dogs are more likely to be agitated when they don't have food. But it's also true that if you give food very often in a particular place, the dogs can also become a little territorial, right? So for us, the only thing is I regulate and I feed the dog at a particular time. Don't make a big deal out of it, and don't worry if you are not able to feed a particular dog. This is another concern I see with a lot of feeders, including me. I used to feed dogs regularly, and I saw, oh, today I'm not able to feed this dog. It's fine. Sometimes it's healthy to keep the dog's instinct preserved. I know some dogs in the village, they will do good with one meal in 2 3 days. That's how naturally dogs eat, especially when they're not neutered, by the way, because here you can't catch these guys for nuts, right? They will eat one meal few days and their system is very healthy. They are fasting naturally. They they need to go with that. So when we give too much of food resource, you will shun the dog's ability or the system to have that instinctive intelligence, right? They need it more than anything, more than the pets. Yeah, tell me, Anula, you had a question.
My question is related to this. I thought I'll ask at the end of the
No,
session, but
tell me. This is
it's
the right time.
related to this. The thing is, I've been feeding these dogs. I'll take the dogs which is behind
Huh,
for 5 years now.
huh.
And now they have come to a comfort zone. They
Yeah,
know they are going to be fed in the morning and evening.
excellent.
They do not, the instinct of going and searching for the
Has
food is
stopped.
not there. One.
Yeah, nice.
Now, because of rains, I allow them to sleep inside
Inside
the
the
yard
compound.
because it is they are not going. And when even if it drizzles, they want to
To
push the
come
gate and
and
come
come
inside.
inside.
And I'm finding it very difficult because somewhere I feel they are losing their actual instinct, what they should have.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is like whatever these children are doing now here,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
eat, go for a walk, sleep, the same thing they are also doing. And
Yes.
I'm worried there will be a time I may not be in this house, I may move out of this house. Yes, it's,
Yeah.
or I may travel, or there is something else. I'm worried they do not know how to search for food now.
Yeah, this is so good. Actually, Swayambhu also exact same situation. She had told us in the previous session. One of the dogs that's come in is with her in the terrace. Gundama is also like this. She never had a plan, but now Gundama has become a part of the house. So it's like that. For them, they have to go up there. We say Maslow's triangle of hierarchy is there. The pyramid. You have basic needs, you have higher needs, higher needs, higher needs. So it's natural for any living being to want to go and scale it higher and higher. So when the basic need of food and shelter and security is being met, they're gonna want the higher, right? They're gonna want to go higher. Now this is the tricky part. When we give something too much, like later on we have to snatch it from them, that creates a little bit of disturbance, right? So we have to be mindful with these treaties and everything, keep their instinct alive. See, regular healthcare cannot be compromised, so we are observing their health, we're seeing that they're doing good. That's definitely our part, right? And for that we have to also be on good terms with them, so we feed them every now and then, we become a friend to the pack. But beyond this, when we give more and more, many times they make that switch and they become very very comfortable with the home environment. Otherwise they will still have the instinct to adapt and change and to move away from situations and to kind of find their own shelter, to fast. Not that they can't get it back. Any dog that's born on the street and who's lived up to at least a year will already have it in their system. So even if you stop, they'll regain it in some time, right? That's how survival happens. The ones that don't make it beyond a year, year and a half, it's because the system was not geared up to handle all of that, right? That's nature. But the ones that do make it beyond a certain age have what it takes within them. So we have to have that. We have to have that with a heavy heart. We need to be able to say in the long term it's for their good. So as a rescuer, as a feeder, as someone who's working with community dogs, we have to always be able to see the bigger picture, the helicopter view. Because how you're helping the dog is not just in short term, you have to help the dog in a long term, and that will help us handle all these situations better. Because if you're thinking about helping them in the short term, naturally you want to make them feel good in that moment, right? But if you think about it in the long term, you'll end up doing good for the whole community. This is how it is in villages actually. One of the most beautiful things I see in a lot of Indian villages, beautiful relationship all the dogs have with the people. It's so nice. And sometimes you'll see they'll just come for long walks with the villagers here and come back. They'll perform the roles that they need to. But at the same time, they're always seen with a distance, because the villager knows very well that if you get them really close, they're going to get into the house and into the family, right? And then they're going to have to lead a life with less freedom. So they'll only say, even the local villagers will say, ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಕಟ್ಟಾಗಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ ಪಾಪ ಅವನು ಫ್ರೀ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಫ್ರೀ ಆಗಿರಲಿ ಅಂತ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬಂದರೆ ಕಟ್ಟಾಗಬೇಕು. ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪೆಟ್ ಡಾಗ್ ನೀಡ್ಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಟೈಡ್, even in the smallest of villages, right? Why tie him? He's free now, let him be there. So he'll keep him at a distance, and they will shoo the dog out of the house. The same guy shooing the dog out of the house will feed the dog with so much of love outside. You'll be like, "Arey yaar, what is this?" But that balance helps to keep that healthy thing going. These dogs don't get into conflict usually, because they know to stay away from people as well. You That contrast, when we create it too much, na, one person is very bad to the dog, shooing the dog, throwing stones at the dog. Those guys we can't change. There are some negative people out there who's just like that. And when there's another extreme who is too loving, giving the shelter, giving this, the dog will say, I have my support now, you've become the villain now, and I'm gonna go for those guys. And that's when you have some of these bites, and those guys are waiting for the bites. They'll make a big scene out of it, right? So we have to just be clever here, and try to keep a balance. I myself don't know a permanent solution, right? But I'm working on it in the best way possible, and I'm telling you, because once you have this knowledge, you may come up with a solution yourself for your location, for your area that you think might be right. But we have to see it from a distance. I'm just going to tell another very popular saying that's there with animal rescue. I've mentioned it before as well. We say good intention is not a substitute for common sense, right? Because you do a lot of things with good intent for these dogs, but in that good intent, if you don't consider what is right for the dog, it can actually backfire very badly, right? So always keep in mind, when it's a community dog or a dog, or if you've decided totally, I'm going to adopt this dog, that's a different story. But if it's on the fence, or you have a dog like this who you're feeding and just taking care of, always remember this. Remember to see them and preserve their instinct. It's just as important. If you want them to continue being a community dog, you have to keep the instinctive side alive, right? If you bring them too much to this side, it'll lead to some kind of a imbalance. Any comments on that, or anything you guys feel about it? I think you're on mute.
Uh, no, no, you are right, 100%. Like with Gundama, I don't want to commit at this point that I'll take her in. And her friend has started coming, but I chase her out.
Yeah.
I mean, I let her sit, but I don't feed, and I chase her out. She goes, yeah, you should not think so emotionally, you should be realistic. Uh, as it is, Gundama stays here, and I'm letting her mix with her so that she has a friend. In case if I need to move out of this house, she has a friend. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
She would have a friend if she has to go back to the streets,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I don't want to create dependency for the Terry.
You're doing it right only. And as you said, we have to, uh, a lot of times, one more where this thought comes again, because this is from our own, both of me and my wife, and our what we keep churning on. We also sometimes, we need to trust a lot more in nature, right? Because the design is there, right? We have a feeling that it'll go really bad in our absence, when it may not always be the case, right? If our involvement, if we can kind of wean it off, the last bit you leave it to nature, because the right things will
Mm.
happen. When we get too involved into it, right, then it becomes very difficult to separate from there. Then it's like we have told the universe and we've told nature that I'm going to take this contract, I'm going to accept this dog, and then midway you're trying to break the contract. So there will be heavy resistance naturally. So first itself, when you're going to kind of get to the dog, you keep a relationship that's going to be, because dogs are happy with it. There is no such thing that a dog is going to be less happy that they didn't get your household. That's the thing we get from our conditioning. The dog is ever happy. As long as he's feeling safe, he's got a full stomach, he's a happy, he's so happy all the time. So we don't need to try really hard to make them happy, right? We actually need to learn how to be happy from them, if anything. So that's really the thing. Our job is just to kind of see the bigger picture, maintain the balance as the more intelligent species, So I think that's what I think about it. um, but yeah, we've got a long way to go, and each time I talk to you guys, or we are churning such topics, something I think about something different or new. So like that, the whole purpose is people listening to this, or even when you guys listen, you might just get an idea of, okay, so the dogs are like this is what pack behavior looks like, so maybe we can do something like this. And that's really how we get to it. So awareness, creating, you know education, creating awareness is the way to go.
And regarding that routine and stuff you are talking, I wanted to just add. um so it was life was like I go to office, I come back, weekends I spend with Kalyani. That was the routine. There was no. Suddenly, this pandemic breaks out, and I'm working from home. She was already confused. Then the feeding started, and I used to go in the noon because evening was my shift. I could not go post shift. It was too late, and you won't believe, Kalyani could sense this change in the routine, and I come back with lot of smell of the dog. So I think she got stressed.
Yeah,
At least 3 or 4 days, she used to wait at the door. I mean, when I open the door, she's there. That means she was waiting for me, and she's stressed. She has never done that.
yeah,
When I go to office, she's never waited at the door. And of course, she got used to that routine that I was going somewhere and coming back with the dog smell and all. So, but for 4 days,
very
I
stressed
think
out.
she was totally upset and she was worried. She could feel that there's some chaos.
Yeah,
So, yeah, they can sense. They can sense.
yeah, smell, they get it
Yeah.
so well. Even for me, you know they she'll understand very well how I've engaged with the dog, and even they know so much. This is why we underestimate them a lot, which part of your body has engaged with the dog. So for example, actually in the dog world, no, the access to the face is a privilege generally. That's the easiest way to put it. So for example, if you've let another dog lick your face, or if they can get the smell of another dog's saliva and their sense of smell is incredibly good, that means something. If they can get it in your hands, it means something. If they can get the smell near your legs, it means something. So some dogs, you'll even see them rubbing their scent on you, you know
Yeah.
trying to lie down on your lap, press their head against you, rub their scent on you. So another dog will get all this information. You're a dog owner who has a dog who's seeing you like so and so, which will base their opinion of you. So many times when you work with a dog that's having reactivity or aggression to other dogs because of a bad experience, it's very difficult for me to work because I don't have even one pair of clothes that will not smell like dogs. So you need to be sterile, and that dog will only get very reactive and take a very long time to settle down around people who are dog people. But with people who don't have dogs, they'll be fine. Or you can see the reverse. Some dogs will only get along with dog people because they've only been socialized around people who have dogs. But they can clearly get the smell of someone who is, not a dog person, and things like that. So they make so many associations at every second, and the scent communication is at some other level. So it's very interesting. Actually, as a matter of fact, next week, the workshop we are doing is called decoding a dog's body language. So it's not an interactive session like this. It's a very specific. So we're actually going to go into understanding dogs communication, the body language, very specifically. In that, maybe I will not talk too much about scent communication, but yeah, there's so many subtle aspects that we miss. It's such a big elaborate communication system, right? Many things that you discarded as cute, or what's wrong with the dog, or weird behavior, has meaning. Nothing, even when the dog is mounting you, It's not that they need to be neutered. It's not that they're trying to show dominance. It can mean 100 things. So to look at one mannerism in, it's like I do this. Here it might mean hi. Somewhere it might mean stop. Somewhere it might be an insult. you know so one body language signal can have 100 interpretations based on the scenario, right? So that's why it's such an elaborate subject. So we are going to be doing that next week. But yeah, I mean, the communication is very, very vast. So anyways, anything else, any other questions about what we spoke, or anything specific you guys want to ask about? I have gone ahead, way a little bit beyond time as usual. I always end up going beyond time. I'm okay with it. I'm so sorry for taking up some extra time. But anything you want to ask before we close this?
I sorry, wanted to ask for 10 more minutes of extra time.
Yeah, no problem. I This
Just
is usual for me.
thing that you wanted to about multi home because
Yeah,
one
I
home
know.
has
You have the yeah.
can be briefly.
No
I know
problem.
you
No, I don't
so
mind at all. I don't mind. And by the way, Swayambhu, Anula, if you guys want to step out at any moment, no problem at all. I understand I've gone way ahead of time. Uh, but since you asked about multi dog households, can you hear that? Can you hear the dogs howling on my background?
yeah.
Yeah, very clear communication. They are doing a back and forth. This is called a locating howl. Each member of my pack, they have a very clear, like an orchestra. They'll all have their frequency. Each one is trying to understand the position of the other. Chalo, you're here, I'm here. You know, it's within the pack. There's another kind of howl called a territorial howl, which is meant to indicate to everyone else, this is our strength. We have 10 members, don't come close. That kind of a thing. This is more of a locating howl. But yeah, anyways, because it was happening live, I thought I'll say that. Um, yeah, so with multi dog households, when you have one dog in the house, a pet dog, and you decide to bring a second or maybe even a third dog, the relationship totally changes the dynamic. This is the first thing to keep in mind. Many people get a second dog thinking, I will have him company for my first dog. Doesn't happen very often. That's not the case, right? If you are getting a second dog for the company of the first, you're in for a ride, right? It means that with the first, you're already facing a little bit of difficulty and you felt the need to give them company. And then you get the second. More likely, especially if it's a younger dog, they're going to pick up the same habit as the first, or they're going to learn. They learn wrong habits faster than the right habits, right? So you'll have your first dog picking up other habits from the younger one, right? So generally, that's not a great idea to get a second dog. But let's say there is a situation where you've decided to add another family member, you've decided to get another puppy home for whatever reason. Like in the case of Deepa, there's a very sweet puppy in the community. You want to bring them home. Uh, when you get the moment you get a second dog into your house, you're no longer, it's not a one to one, it's not the humans and dog relationship. It becomes into a more of a pack, right? So it's important that certain ground rules get established from day one. Now, this can be a little appalling for your first dog. Whatever you do, whatever you do to ease it for the first dog, they are gonna go through a stressful period, just like how Kalyani had the stress each time she came with the smell of the other dogs. For the first week or two, your first dog is gonna go through some kind of stress, but they will adapt into it, and you can do a whole lot of things to help them adapt into it. When you bring a second dog, the first dog, time gets restricted, space gets restricted, ability to move freely gets restricted. Um, in some dogs who view food as a resource, they may even see that food gets restricted even though you're giving the same amount of food. But in their head, if they watch you feeding the other dog, they can even perceive it as something becoming less. So, first thing to remember, before you bring the second dog, always make sure your first dog has a balanced schedule, a routine where you can include the second dog, which means your dog needs individual feeding time and feeding space. Your dog needs an individual resting time and resting space. People say, I just bring the other dog and they just become friends. Isn't that, quite easier? It's not always the case. See, some dogs have something we call a 100% social match based on a variety of characters. Like we said, decision makers and protectors, right? 100% fit. If that's the case, you're lucky. You don't have to do anything. It'll actually be fantastic. But many times it's only, we call it social acceptance, which means they deal with each other most of the time. So you see many dogs that are okay with each other or on walks, they are not 100% okay. It's not like they just want to hang out with each other all the time. They're okay with each other, much like how we are with people. When we go out, it's not like, you're want to make friends with everyone out there. It's social acceptance, right? So most of the time when you get another dog into your household, what you're going to look at is social acceptance. Social acceptance will be okay provided all of them are having their own space and time to rest, and they're having their own things to do separately along with the things that they do together. So the most important thing when you have more number of dogs is they all need their individual resting time and space. If you get an older, more mature dog, this happens sometimes quite naturally, right? Especially if their personalities match. But mostly the second dog that comes home is mostly what we see is a puppy, right? So you have an older dog, and then you have a second puppy. In such a case, what happens is puppy wants to engage with the environment, and the most interesting part of your environment is going to be your dog. So your puppy is going to be all over your older dog all the time. The older dog is always very tolerant of puppies, right? So you'll never see anything happen. So you'll be like, he's so sweet, he's allowing. Now this puppy will grow thinking, keeping the older dog as the center of attraction, playing, roughhousing, jumping, biting the ear. Occasionally the older dog will give a growl, but it becomes a habit. Now, when the younger dog grows over 7 months of age, they are no longer perceived as a puppy. They are teenagers now. So, it's one thing for a child to come running up to you and hug you, and it's another thing for a half grown adult to come running up to you and hug you. So, suddenly, this older dog is going to give different reactions. It's probably a little more strong reactions. But that puppy, having grown up in this way, will say, Arey yaar, and they don't have a place to go away. Remember, their whole stimulation is your house. In nature, what happens as they grow, the older dog starts to correct and they move away and find their own time pass. But here it's just you and the dog, two dogs. So when the other dog starts to react, this puppy will start to say that, why are you doing that, and get more frustrated and try harder. And that is when you get a conflict. And then many people say they were together, they were fine till 7 months, and then later on they started having a lot of fights every now and then. And the truth is, they were never fine, right? So, the trick to having a multi dog household is actually to start with less for the second dog, especially in terms of with the first dog, and have small moments of regulated interaction. So, how I would do this is, I have an older dog, the older dog is priority. They have the privilege of having been with you in that house, they know the space, they know, so we don't cut down too much from the older dog. um, but when the younger puppy comes, from day one we train them in such a way. So either by implementing some form of um, crate training, or training them to be in a particular space from a young age, separation training, and then gradually giving them their routine. So less is more in this case, right? You get a puppy and you let him spend all the time with your older dog, and then you want to cut it off, doesn't pan out too well, right? Instead, they are restricted. They come out, they have their meals, they have their playtime with the older dog, they have their playtime with you. This will always end up becoming good. And as they grow older, you can choose whether, based on their social compatibility, how much you want them to be with each other. But you have to realistically accept the fact and be okay with the fact that maybe social compatibility might be less, especially if they are of the same gender. And I may have to follow a routine where is similar to what you're doing when they're a puppy. But even if you do that, that dog's not going to be unhappy, because you presented yourself very clearly from day one, right? But yes, it's definitely more effort to have another dog, especially for the first year and a half, because everything is going to get doubled. So it's not that you can club things, I can walk them together. No, you may have to do something individually based on the different needs and personalities. So I'm just saying this, it's not always the case, but whenever someone is thinking of having a multi dog household, you need to remember that there's all this to consider. So only if you are okay with it and ready for it, then you go ahead. But if you do think you have the time to spare and you have the ability to, because it's also a puppy, right? Puppies need so much of nourishment, and we cannot expect that nourishment to come from our older dog, right? So that as much time you were able to spend and give to your older dog as they were growing, you need to be able to provide that for the other guy. Otherwise, you become your older dog becomes a translator, we say, and your younger dog grows up to become into a dog interested dog, which means for him humans are not really of any value. His only thing is dogs, 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 right? And most of what he perceives, you know, what you're saying is through that dog, right? And these dogs will develop this clingy habit with the older dog, you know, and if the older dog goes for a walk, they can't be alone at home. And many times they become protective of the older dog, they become possessive of the older dog, they get into competitions with them unnecessarily, right? So to prevent all this from day one, even before you get the dog, you set the system up for your older dog, integrate the younger dog into that system you've created, and then you can go ahead. This is the only way we can go about it with pet dogs. In nature, it's not so complicated. You know, there's usually a give and take, there's an ability to move away, there are other stimulants, so it doesn't usually land up in a problem. But if you have uh, if you live in an apartment home or urban area, then definitely you have to set the system right before you go ahead, right? And another thing with multi-dog households is we always do compatibility checks. It's very difficult to do with a young puppy, because their personality is not shaped fully, and of course you have the option to also shape it a certain way because they're coming home that early. But usually we check the personality, if it is a complementary. Usually you want more opposites, as weird as that sounds. You don't want similarities, because in the long term the similarities don't go great, right? You want complementing behaviors. Maybe in the short term you might find like, oh, my dog's a very high energy dog, my second dog is a very high energy dog, they can play with each other and drain each other's energy. Might sound great when they're a puppy, but trust me, they're not going to be able to play with each other after they turn 7 months, because that's not what they want. They So you need complementary. So sometimes we say, if your dog's slightly on the more introverted side, so as to put it that way, an extroverted dog, like a decision maker protector pair, or if you have a dog that's preferring certain things, you get a dog that's preferring the other things. You got a foodie here, get a dog that loves touch and handling there, right? So this is how we usually do the pairing when we get a second dog, but you can't accurately read this for a very young puppy, so we just do our best and then raise that puppy in such a way that there's no conflict. Does that answer you, or
I think great. But so let's say if you were to, I think it really helps. So, like you're saying, so you train the pup because that's easy, right? But let's say, so if reduce, like have a clear cut space, crate train, whatever. But let's say if your dog, now in this case, let's say because NG will also be curious when there's a new dog. Now, if he wants to go and meet and keeps barking because there's another one at that time, then how do you stop that from happening?
very valid question. Yeah, so usually it the older dog initially will want to meet, but trust me, once the puppy starts showing their true colors, the older dog will just want space 95% of the time. uh, it's okay to usually if you have an older dog like Angie, I'm not talking about, again, this is not a general statement, because I know Angie. With Angie, it would be good. You can actually allow him to meet the puppy, but that also try to get it into a routine. You have a particular time where you let them meet, you decide where they meet, how they meet, what is the mode of interaction. So we say when you have two dogs, the best mode of interaction is taking them for an outing together. It's the oldest and simplest way for them to perceive each other as a member of the same unit. They move together, and then they come back home, they hang out, maybe play for about 5-10 minutes the way they want, with you supervising, of course. Then you do some training with both of them together, so they learn to respond around each other, some basic things, and then you put them back. So they're like, okay, that was a great experience because it had everything, and you repeat this rather than leaving it to chance. When you let them just play in the house for long durations, that becomes the basis of the relationship, and play is not always play. There's a fine line where it can become into a fight. Sometimes if the older dog might be showing signs of play, but they're actually trying to appease the younger dog and say, just stop it, oh god, okay, that's enough, with trying to say it politely basically, but we will misinterpret it as play. And then gradually you can, best time to allow for play is after the initial energy has been drained. So We go for a walk, we come back, do a little bit of play, do a little bit of training in a certain way, send them into their space. So each day they look forward to meeting and spending time with each other. So it becomes, you're creating a very nice relationship. And as you grow older, you may be able to remove some boundaries, more time, more space, but you have to take that slow based on their personality. And also, a big rift will happen around 7 months when the hormones start to kick in, right? And especially when they're of the same gender. Of course, even if they're of other gender, then there'll be a different kind of a scenario, especially if they're not neutered. And even when you neuter, there will be another shift that happens. That's why you don't want the relationship to be dictated by their internal thing. It has to be dictated by the routine you create. That's the thing you need to do when you domesticate the dog, right? You will have to, if you're domesticating, you have to go all the way and make sure that you take care of everything to the T, and then it'll plan out right. So it's like that.
Sorry, just one
No
second.
worries.
And so all this in place, like what you mentioned the other day,
Hmm.
even then I'm just reconfirming because I had said, given that, let's say that pup is a terrier and an Indie, I think
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
mix because it looks a lot like a terrier,
Terrier.
but I don't know the mix then. Yeah. So, like you were mentioning, in terms of this vast difference between energy, I mean, it's literally poles apart
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Angie is
Is a song.
pretty much sleeping and just like this calm.
Yeah.
So, that's still, is that still a big red flag? Even if you do all of this, given that they're complete, the needs are very different.
Um,
Uh,
yeah,
say.
no, I wouldn't say it's a red flag at all, but yeah, the effort will definitely vary. See, every indie that you see has traits of terriers, has traits of hounds. Primarily these two, I would say, terrier and hounds. Terrier because they have a tendency to scavenge and exterminate vermin and chase because it's in their blood, and hounds because, of course, the hunting instinct is there in most of them. Um, you have to give expression. Let's say now this indie that you adopt seems to have a lot of terrier like genes and instincts. They need an outlet, right? So terriers tend to be very high energy. They want to problem solve. They want to kind of do stuff, right? So as an indie and as a, with that terrier instinct, you'll need to give an outlet for that. With Angie, there's not much. He's already settled in, right? You've actually raised him really well. That's also another criteria, by the way. If you want to get a second dog, you make sure that your relationship with the first dog is going good. That's the first prerequisite, right? Which is the case actually with you and Angie. Um, so with Angie, there's not much to be done, but with the second dog, it's a different experience. So you raising him, you may have to provide different kinds of activities, different things, their play styles. Sure, Swayambhu, no problem. Thank you so much.
I have to pick up some pet food. I have to
No
leave.
problem. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
yeah.
attending. We'll
Thank
share
you.
the recording as well.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, Deepa.
Bye. So nice talking to you. Bye.
Yeah. So when when you have a terrier or a dog with different instincts, um, eh, you may have to change your training system and the way you work, but that's about it. Even their play styles may not match
Yeah,
initially,
yeah.
but the beauty is don't if you create a scenario with a different kind of interaction, then they will look forward to only that. I knew a German Shepherd that used to be always be hanging around kids, and be around big groups of people. Not usually what the breed is designed to be, right? But definitely something happened because of regular exposure. So every day the puppy is growing up around Angie and having a certain relationship. So that's what will be the thing in the future. So actually, we are just preventing any wrong from happening and only creating good experiences in favor of what we want, right? So that's how it works. You don't have to worry too much about the terrier instincts there. What more you have to look at is, regardless of whether he had terrier instincts or hound instincts or he was just an indie, same consideration, right? Because that we can work on. We can say, okay, this guy has terrier instincts, we can change his training a little bit. But what you cannot change later is you need to make sure that you will be spending extra time, extra effort, create changing your setup and your routine and all that. So you have to be mentally ready to do that. If you're ready for that, then it's okay. Then the smaller things can be worked on.
Yeah, I think because my thing was more, let's say, if those things are taken, like, see, of course, I walk Angie.
Yeah.
I may not be able to walk him purely
Yes,
because if he's a younger dog. So
for
let's say
sure.
I keep a
Walker.
walker
Yeah,
or
correct.
because it needs engagement, right, and all
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that. My whole thing was the Angie's dynamics with him when he gets older, because that's a concern. I cannot go down, 8 months
Mm.
down the line and say, sorry, that's not working. So if
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can be worked
yeah.
with, of course,
The
guidance.
dynamics you never even let, uh, h- as weird as it sounds, you don't even let him figure out his dynamic. You set it up for them.
From the beginning, right?
Yeah,
And that could
yeah, that
be
continues, and but you're also mentally prepared that if the social compatibility, which is something you won't know actually fully till the dog grows into an adult. If by chance even their social compatibility doesn't mean they fight, but they're not matching 100%, maybe it's only a 50% match, right? Even if that does happen, your system is set in such a way that there's no problem,
there's
right?
no
Which
problem.
means
Yeah.
at max maybe they can't share the same resting space, worst case,
Yeah.
but they will walk together, it'll pakka happen. They will be able to kind of just hang out at the same space, that will happen, right? But whether they will be able to be friends all the time and be together all the time, that may not, right? If you're mentally prepared and ready for such a thing, then easy. Most times
So,
people have that expectation, and then it comes crashing down later.
yeah, yeah. So basically, like you're saying, sorry, one last question. I know
No
I'm holding
problem.
you.
No, 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 it's
Let's say
okay.
that Angie, of course, like he sleeps with us, for
Yeah,
example, right?
yeah,
Because we love him and he's chosen to. Now,
for
therefore,
sure.
that means with the new one, I'll have to set a boundary that he never
Absolutely.
gets to do
Absolutely.
that. Right.
Especially sleeping places,
Yeah.
eating places from day one. So from day one, he has to learn to.
Just give like I can give one first and then in another place I serve him. That's easier to.
Yeah,
So in a way, I'm really saying that he'll never get to sleep with us in
yeah,
because Angie, that's Angie's space.
yeah.
It's sacrosanct.
For
Really,
sure.
that's
In
his
that
space.
room, he will never get to sleep. If you maybe choose to go and sleep in his room, that may
Another
be
one then.
possible, or his space close to it.
But
But
yeah,
that also I wouldn't advise, right?
because Angie has always been there, and for him, then I'm not there,
Yeah, yeah. It
right? So that
also changes their pack, the roles, as we discussed
yeah,
earlier. Like from day
yeah.
one, there's something you cultivate. So then when you change it, even that dog will start to behave. So he's not going to feel bad that he doesn't have the privilege of resting in the same room as you until you
Right,
present it,
exactly. Got
right?
it.
So that's
Got
the thing.
because he's never gotten used to it. So
He's never.
it's mostly he feeling emotional that he's
Yeah, it's
not getting what he.
yeah, it is. It
So
is.
he's
He's
got
coming
to
with
go
an
it. So
open mind. So it's for us to just make him have a good experience in whatever way. That's the
got it. Great.
yeah.
Thanks so much.
No
Thank you. Such
problem.
an interesting question. Thanks so much.
Hey, no worries.
Thank
My pleasure. So we've recorded this and we'll share it with you as well. And yeah, of course, we have a lot of workshops coming. Anytime you want to join in, most welcome.
you. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks. Take
cool.
care.
All
Bye.
right. Convey my
Bye.
regards to everyone. Yeah.
Will do.